You always have to remember that it could be you, right? It could be me who all of a sudden is de-identified, and would we ever want to do this? Yeah, great question. I think that's an interesting question, and it probably also becomes more philosophical. However, I always ask any of my team members or anyone who I work with, would you like your sensitive information or someone from your family member be out there? And we are talking about medical, right? And we all know that that very often some pieces of information floating can impact your employment, can impact your personal, I guess, personal and professional life later, because that information is there. If you provide the consent and you know what you are disclosing, that's a very different thing when it comes to privacy, because you have provided consent, and the consent is usually gathered via either in-person consent signature, or now there's a lot of electronic. So that's perfectly fine. However, when you are thinking about data that is de-identified or anonymized, which a lot of data sets are, you have to be very mindful to make sure that by a mistake or just by simple error or not understanding the privacy stipulations, that we are not releasing information that can impact someone's life, or that person can be easily de-identified. What I mean by it is very simple. Very often there are information that is very public. For example, our birth dates and our death dates are public. You can go in to your state department, and you can see how many people were born, how many children were born on a given date, as well as how many people have passed away. So this is private. This is very public information. If you're talking about rare diseases, where you might have very few patients, if there is only, let's say, 20 patients in the state of Pennsylvania with certain condition, and you know when they were born, and you can look up when they were born or what zip code, or the analysis reveals the zip code, you can quickly start identifying them if there's anything in the data set. So let's say if there is a date of birth, or even if there's a year of birth, which often is reported, and there's only 20 people impacted, there is nothing preventing you to going in and checking that. So I want to be very mindful. I want to be mindful. This is not what you should be doing. You have to be always very mindful of what level of aggregation you have, what do you do with the data, and what is the consequence of it. Because you can do something, that doesn't mean that it is not going to be harmful to at the end once it's released. And even if it's not intentional, right? Even if it's not intentional. So very often there are organizations that allow to either certify your tools or review the analysis or the data sets that are being shared to ensure that the level of aggregation is appropriate and protects where it might be, where the risk might happen. And that's called the risk assessment. And they really provide you with information on what variables should not be in your data set, or what you should not be doing analysis on, in order to prevent any or limit the risk of re-identifying an individual. And I do want to mention that again, you always have to remember that it could be you, right? It could be me who all of a sudden is de-identified, and would we ever want to do this? So I think if you live with that principle, it makes it much easier to not to reveal someone else's privacy when they have not given consent for it.